Hello everyone, I'm High Cider, and I am banging at the Bugatti track today. This is a good one. I love Le Mans, and it's the Tour de France happening right now on the bicycle side, so let's grab a baguette and see what happens here. Love this track. Coming over this Dunlop Bridge here, so much fun fighting the wheelie. So many good corners here. This is one of the best. Into this long sweeping right-hander. A lot of rear brake here, and that is the subject for today. Here's another good one right here. Really snug getting into this. Opens up real well. You can get a nice little power really coming out of here once in a while. Gonna run this Honda today. It won me over doing the time trials from before. Definitely like it. It still sounds like a sea creature on the top side. I don't know why the bike is breaking up. The engine noise just gets wonky as the bike starts revving out. I don't know what's going on there. And also, no lap counter on this bike, which for me, not running anything on the display most times, is a bit of a problem. But all in all, the Honda is still an excellent bike. So today we are talking all things rear brake. Mentioned it earlier in a different episode, but it is so important this year that I just want to do a full episode about rear brake. We also want to bring up the article by Matt Oxley discussing how much rear brake actually gets used in this. And this game, it's not to the T what the article describes. We'll do a little compare and contrast there. One of the cool things about the article, though, is it also highlights how, yes, the bikes use electronics, but you want to use as little as possible because they slow you down. And it's one of my complaints here about GP23 is you're getting way more electronics than I personally would prefer. Even with anti-wheelie and the TC down at 1, you're still getting anti-wheelie in there and not much wheel spin. You can get to spin a little bit, but nothing like last year. And last year was awesome. It's a shame they backed up on the aggressiveness there. So, rear brake, rear brake, rear brake. A lot to be done on this one. The rear brake is going to do some wheelie control for you, no doubt, coming out of the corner. You are going to get some wheel spin. When the bike is leaned over, the bike will light up, and the rear brake is going to help chill that out a good bit. When you get zassy on the curbs, that definitely get the bike loosened up, and just having some rear brake on just mellows everything out. Keep things more chill. If the bike is getting squirrely on you, just a little bit of rear brake makes everything real nice. You can use it just about anywhere other than just if you're starting to lean the bike over, if you slam the brake on like a goon, it's gonna jump on you and be no good there. But for the most part, you can use rear brake just about anywhere, and it helps with just about everything. The main thing that's different this year, the big crazy change that 23 brought, is when you're picking up the throttle, the bike stands up a lot, and it's really hard to keep your corner going properly. And rear brake is the remedy for that. When you feed the rear brake in, the bike is going to squat down and hold that corner a lot better than if you don't use it. And that is the real thing here. A lot of rear brake this year is you need it to be analog. You need a little, you need more, you need all of it. And that's going to be really hard for you to do on a skittle here, people. It is time for you to make the change to the High Cider controller layout. The rear brake in a lot of ways this year is a lot like a second throttle, where you've got a full rear brake, you're coming out of the corner, and you want to feed it out in the same way you're feeding throttle in accelerating out of a corner. Really hard to deal with a skittle. You got the filter things, you can get it a little bit, but it's not the same every corner. You need that full resolution of a trigger to make those adjustments properly and get the real feel and the flow going for using it properly this year. So notice on this controller setup, you've got the rear brake on the left trigger, front brake on the right, so both of them you can have nice fine adjustments, and that right thumbstick throttle works really well. If you haven't tried it, at least do yourself a favor and try a way that feels. Throttle on the right thumbstick has very good control, very fine resolution. Don't be afraid of it, and don't be afraid of messing up your other games. Your brain is going to make adjustments just fine when you go to your other games using throttle on the right trigger like most people do. It will not mess up the rest of your gameplay. You'll just switch over and it's fine. It's not that bad. Of course, making an adjustment to any other controller layout or go into first person or all that, it takes some adjustment, but it's one of those deals where you practice a little bit and then all of a sudden you can do it and life is good. So don't be afraid to make this change. This is a year for you to do it because you're going to need a nice analog rear brake to have fun with this game and haul the mail. So just bite the bullet, make the change, and your life is going to get better after a couple hours of frustration. All right, let's have a look at the setup today. The setups in general all just feel blah. They don't feel like they do too much. I don't have strong opinions about it yet this year. I don't care for it. With the rear being so glued to the ground, it all just kind of sucks. Alright, so let's have a look at the most important part of rear brake this year, and that is the corner exit. So notice on the lower right, I've got the tachometer way zoomed up here to really show nice and loud how much rear brake is in fact getting used here this time around. Now, I don't use a lot of rear brake coming into the corner, a little bit sometimes, but the main is the apex out. Right about here, we're gonna clamp it down once we feed a little in. And just kind of letting it back out just like a second throttle towards the end there. So you got the bike into the corner. It's time to leave. You're gonna find when you pick the throttle up just a little bit, the bike's actually gonna lean in, the guy's gonna go forward, and it's gonna turn tighter for that first little bit of throttle. You put too much in it, the bike's gonna stand up, but you add a little bit of throttle, the bike's gonna turn in, be nice and snug, and that's when you wanna roll in the rear brake, and that's gonna make the thing turn even a little sharper at that point. And that's the maximum you're gonna get. Now once the corner starts opening up, you have the option of rolling in the throttle, which is gonna stand the bike up, or releasing the rear brake, which is also gonna stand the bike up. And in general, what you're looking for is, with the corner exit, you kind of want to be doing the tractable thing with the bike, where if you're too much of a hooligan, you're going to get a wheelie and the electronics is going to shut it off. If you don't feed enough in, you're leaving speed on the table. So you just want that front end just bobbing just a little bit, not too high, but it's got to be a little noisy or you're not going as fast as you can. Another thing to notice with this here is, as you're starting to come out of the corner, the bike will turn more sharply in a lower gear. So if you could come out in second or third gear, you'd want to come out in third gear because it's going to turn more sharply. Now, if the revs are too low, you're not going to have the acceleration you need, so you just can't go around the track in sixth gear. So a couple questions I have here. Does fuel consumption matter? It doesn't matter for me because I always run max power, so I can't deal with tire wear or fuel consumption. But if you are doing fuel consumption, is it true that holding the rear brake down all the time and rolling into the throttle is actually going to suck your gas tank dry faster? I don't know if this game models that or not, but if it's a subject for you, you might want to consider that. So you've got a little bit of throttle in, you've got the rear brake clamped then, and then it's coming out of the corner. And you've got two options to deal with once you're at that place. Do you let the rear brake out, or do you feed all the throttle in? When I'm not worried about brake temperature, I don't really have a sense of the brake fading with temperature. When it's glowing red, and if I don't have the visuals on and I'm not paying attention to it, it doesn't seem like the longer into the run I go that the rear end starts fading. So I don't know if that's a real problem or not. And here's why it would matter. If it was a problem, then leaving the corner, when you have the option to roll in more throttle or roll out the rear brake, you would want to roll out the rear brake to keep the thing cooler. If it doesn't matter, a lot of times leaving that brake on and just picking up the throttle instead, things go more smoothly. So it depends on what the game is actually doing. And I'm kind of in the middle here where my brain says, be thrifty, don't wear out your pads and roll out of the brake. But if the game doesn't actually model that, I'd probably want to break the habit on purpose and use that rear brake even more. So let's talk a little bit about how the article by Matt Oxley, Danilo Petrucci, he describes the way he uses the brake around Le Mans, and there's some similarities and differences here that I'm seeing compared to the real game. So at turn 6, La Chapelle, after that Dunlop bridge, that long sweeper to the right, he says, Petrucci says, the exit of this corner isn't tight at all. It opens out a long way, so you don't pick up the bike so quickly here. So the bike doesn't wheelie too much, so you don't need to use so much rear brake. I'm finding that is definitely not the way I experienced the game here. That is one of the places where I have the brake clamped down completely for an extended period of time coming out of the corner just to keep the bike leaned over as far as possible. So it sounds like in real life for him, the rear brake isn't making the bike turn more sharply like it does in this game. Now in contrast, he's talking about turn 7 now, that long sweepy left that opens up. Middle of the quote here, Petrucci says, you also push a lot with the rear brake in the middle of the corner, both to unload the front tire and to help the bike turn better, because if the front is too low, the bike won't get out of the corner so well. So here, it sounds a little more like the game in that the rear brake is helping the bike to turn. So I'm a little conflicted about what's what here in terms of the simulation quality compared to real life. What I do know is that in this game, If you want the bike to turn more sharply and not have the corner open up so bad, you better be using the hell out of this rear brake and have that thing glowing. I'm gonna go ahead and let this race finish. You guys can keep watching the rear brake trace and get a feel for how much is actually used here. It's not 70%, but it is a heap, that is for sure. So why don't you put that bike in first person view like it should be, clean all that junk off the screen that you don't need, and enjoy a motorcycle simulator, not a video game.